To start like 5 minutes ago? Yes. All right, so we're already burning daylight. My name is Johannes Brodwall, and today I don't have much of ambition of teaching you something new or anything like that. What I'm just hoping to do is I want to have fun on stage programming, like you saw the people throwing the fish around. We want to have fun throwing the code around, and I'll get help from Boris later to do that. And I hope that you will enjoy watching us throw the code around. And then I hope that you will be able to use some of what you see today to have more fun at work later. So does that sound like a reasonable goal? Okay, so the title of my talk is Experience Agile Programming, and I'd like to get to know you a little bit. So, how many of you are programmers? So that's about half of the audience. And of you, how many of you know of test-driven development, pair programming, and refactoring? That's more or less the same people. And how many of you use it? That's 6 people, I think, 6 or 7 people. So I think this is a lot like what you heard earlier today when Jeff was talking. You know this stuff. It's pretty simple stuff, but it's not easy to do. So we know that we should do it, but that we don't necessarily know how to do it or how to get started. So for those of you who aren't programmers, I hope that you will get to see how people can interact better with the code and how this affects team dynamics, because I think it's a very interesting subject. So I will, I'm halfway through the description. Then I will do a demo with Boris. And then we'll have a discussion about what you saw at the demo. And I will ask you questions. And I have chocolate. So if you answer the questions, or if you offer comments, or if you ask questions, you will get chocolate. Does that sound like a good deal? Any questions about that? What? I do not have beer, sadly, but that was a question. So if you want a chocolate, you will get a chocolate. All right, so when Boris and I code, it's okay if you guys talk among yourselves, because you might want to comment on what you see. It's not easy for me to deal with questions at that point in time, but I hope that after that I'll have a lot of questions and comments from you afterwards, and there's chocolate. So talk about what you see with the person next to you, and tweet. My Twitter ID is Johannes, and Boris is that. So feel free to tweet in Russian. I don't understand Russian, but I love having tweets in Russian with my name in it. Okay, so Boris, if you would join me on stage, please.
Sure. Does it work? Not really.
We'll see. All right, so welcome to the team. So I don't know if you're familiar with this problem that we will be programming. We call it Minesweeper. It's very popular with project managers, I've heard. And the way that the game works is that you have a lot of squares on the board, and when you click on a square, it either, if there's a mine on that square, like there's a mine here, if you were to click on that square, the board would explode. You would step on the mine. And if you click on something that's not a mine, then it shows the number of mines adjacent to that cell.
Okay.
That sounds understandable?
Yeah, sure.
All right, and what we will do, we'll have a program where we get the field like this. Yep. So do you understand the format?
Yeah, sure. I guess asterisk is mine.
Yeah, and
okay.
The dots is not mine. And then we're going to return something like this.
a number of mines around.
Exactly.
Oh, it works now, I think.
Excellent.
Good.
Okay, so do you want to get started?
Yep, let's go.
Let's have a seat. Okay, so I thought we'd use CoffeeScript.
Yeah, it's okay.
And I've got a CoffeeScript rig set up here, so I've got a hello world thing. So do you want to do it like we take as small steps as possible?
Yeah, probably.
Okay, so this will, so let's see how small we can make the steps.
Let's see.
All right, do you want me to write the first test?
Yeah, if it's possible.
All right, so I'll write the first test. That did something other than I thought it would. So we're going to describe a minefield, right?
Yep.
And let's see, what can we say about it? It shows empty cells. So I expect that if I have a minefield with just empties, like this, and then I ask it for the hints, so that should return sort of the array, then I expect that to equal zeros all around. Looks fine?
Yep.
And let's refresh this. Okay, so now it's failing and it says the minefield is not defined. I'll open the file for you, and then you can implement it. There we go. Okay, so currently it's just hello world.
Okay, so I guess the last possible step is to define a class and hard code the return value.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay. I'm not that used to a keyboard, but I'll try to do the best. So what are we gonna have here? The hints.
Yeah.
Yep. Hints. And you should get zeros back.
Yeah. This is, I've heard some people call this sliming the code.
Yeah, it's
Right.
green now.
Okay, so now let's move it so we can see the green.
Yeah.
So you want to write the next test?
Yeah, sure. Okay, I guess we should increase the rows number, right?
Yeah, that's good. So we make sure that it reflects the dimensions of the minefield.
So I guess it shows correct rows number.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's hard to take a smaller step than that.
I know what's easier, the copy paste.
Yeah.
Right, and so we'll just add one more row.
That should be easy.
No doubt. Well, let's try it again. Your turn now.
All right. Okay, so let's do. So I need to save the argument then. So in a constructor. What's the CoffeeScript syntax? Do you remember?
Yeah, well, what do you mean?
I need to save the parameter, so it's like cells.
I guess you just need the @ sign first. Yeah.
All right, so now I'm saving the parameter, and then I
Right.
want something that returns. So for each row in 0 to the cells of length. So now I return. Okay, so now I return the right number of rows.
Yeah, I guess we'll need this one more, so we just have to make helper out of this.
Yeah, that's good idea. So I'm refactoring this.
Yep.
So this is the rows.
Not really rows, rows indexes, I guess, because
Yeah, that's right.
rows are quite confusing.
Row indexes.
Yep.
Thank you. I like that. Oops.
Still green.
Passes.
Yep.
Good. All right. Thank you.
Yeah, it's your spec now.
Okay, so my turn. I think I'm just going to change this so it shows correct field dimensions.
Feels good.
So I'm going to work on the number of columns as well.
Yeah.
All right, you have a failing spec.
Okay.
Good, sir. You can make it pass.
Okay, the only thing we need to do now is to increase the number of fours. So it's for cell
Called?
call, yeah,
Yeah.
call, right. In, I guess, call indexes
Yeah, we can do that.
and more braces like this. Yeah, looks good.
Yeah, and you have to join them together, otherwise it won't be a string.
Yep, right. Okay. And since we have square, we can use like this, right?
Yeah, it should work. You misspelled length. Width and H.
Yeah.
Yes, perfect.
It's green now.
All right.
Okay. I use this like a mouse. Feels the same. Okay, I guess we're gonna start with the mines, right?
Yeah, do you want to do refactoring first?
Refactoring of the which part?
Since this hard-coded, if you go back to to here, this number here, it's represents the concept. This is the hint for the cell and the column, right?
Yeah, so
So So maybe we should make that into a helper method.
they're gonna do which kind of thing?
Ah,
As
well,
bump?
yeah. So the hints. So that's the hints for that cell, right?
Okay, let's keep it for a while, okay?
Yeah. That's good.
It shows mine, I guess.
Yeah.
Right? I think what we have to refactor is this spec, in fact. So
Alright.
we can do a little thing here. We can create the no, not really. We can take this thing out, right?
Yeah, we're going to do that again quite a bit.
Yeah, right. So it's gonna hit like mine field and accept the field, or how do we call it?
Let's call it expect hints, because that's what we're doing.
Yeah, right.
So that says that the hints for a given minefield.
Field is okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And here we had the field.
That's good.
And I guess it is. That's it.
So yeah, so if you say expect hints and then keep the square brackets.
Right.
Perfect. I like it.
Let's just write. Nope,
Oh,
not defined.
it has to be equals here because it's a
Yeah, right.
It's not a class. All
Green
right.
now,
Good
okay,
job.
good.
Let's do the next one.
Okay, still green. And now we're gonna work with mine, right?
Yeah.
Expect hints and one mine here. Still need dots.
Let's just do it without the dots, just the mine.
Yeah, right.
So,
Okay.
so then we don't have
Gonna
to
be
start.
easy step, right?
Yeah. So then we don't have to think about counting it.
So here it is, and it's red.
All right. So that's my turn. So okay. So if it is a mine, so now I'm going to do. This is the hint for this row and column. Right.
Yep.
So I do the hint for the row and column is equal to, let's see, it's the default was 0,
Yeah.
and we return a star if the cells at row column equals to the mine. Like that?
Yeah.
Yes. And
Yeah, it's gonna be helper too.
yeah. So has mine,
Yep.
row call. So has mine with row call should return this.
Okay.
That looks good.
Yeah, your spec now.
Yeah. Good. Now we're going to start with counting. Oops. Counting. So these were hints, right? So it shows the hint right of the mine.
Yeah.
So we need this to be 1 and 0.
Right, okay.
Right, make sure that you've got it properly in front of you so that you don't sprain your back.
I feel good about it. Okay, so I guess we just need to return 1 if we have a mine.
Mm-hmm.
Where?
Row and col -1.
-1, right. Like this.
Yes.
And let's green again. Not
well,
really.
no, the oh.
Oops.
Let's just.
Node.js is down.
Node.js is up again. There we go. Actually, I'm going to restart this because it seems like it had a problem with compilation.
Yeah.
Okay. There we go.
Okay, that's great.
Good. I'm a little worried about that you check for this before that, because doesn't that mean that we'll overwrite your mine? So shouldn't the mine check be before the neighbor check?
Yeah, it looks like. Okay. And the next easy step going to be to check if we have hint left of the mine.
Yes.
Same thing here. And up. And it's right again.
Good. So,
Yeah, that was pretty fast. I can just click now.
all right. So do you want to keep taking these small steps?
Well, as you wish. I feel okay about it.
So in theory, we've got time. How long is this session supposed to be? Because I think I might be confused. When are we supposed to end? Does anyone know?
Half an hour. You have half an hour.
I have half an hour still.
Yeah.
So I think so are we in agreement? I've got 35 minutes or 30 minutes. All right. Okay. Was that so? Was that you? Thank you. Now, so that means we've got time to take the slow steps.
Okay.
So then we've got done. So now we have a minefield. We can detect mines to the left and to the right. Now above and below. So let's do above. No, let's do below first because that's. Oh. So now we have a minefield that goes the other way.
Yeah. It's gonna be easier too.
Ah, the copy-paste design pattern.
Yeah, I like it. And it's gonna be -1, right?
Yeah.
Oops.
That would be a weird minefield. Okay, we've got, I think, a null pointer exception going on here.
So,
Ah,
check this way.
nice.
And Node.js seems to be down again.
Oh, that's not good. Refresh it.
Okay, it works.
Okay.
And the last one above. All right. Like that.
All right, this should take care of most of the situation. So I'll do +1. And it's green again?
Yep.
Okay, so I think we're going to do the rest of the minefield around the mine.
Yeah. So it's supposed to just work since we have on the left, on the right, everywhere.
Well, if you look at the test, the spec here, it actually has the corners as well.
Right, yeah.
So we're missing the corners. Yeah, so
Yeah.
the task is missing the corners.
I think
this
it's time
code
to
is...
get rid of these repeating strings.
Yeah, but maybe we want to make it to work pass first.
4 more lines, okay,
Yeah.
no problem. I like copy paste. So it's gonna be like this.
Yeah, -1.
Yeah. -1 again, and +1. Oops.
That should take care of them.
Yeah, it's green. Okay. And now we do refactoring, right?
Yeah.
So what do we have here?
So it's like -1, 2 +1, and then it's both dimensions.
So it's like 4
For the-
are in
Yeah,
row -1.
2 row +1.
Yeah. And 4C in col.
Yeah.
Okay, so
And then, yeah, so we'll just copy the bit in the middle.
like this.
Good.
It's in green, so we can remove this
Yeah,
one.
actually what happened, you duplicated the line
Oops.
with Control B. So.
Yeah, I feel much better now.
Good.
And it's still green.
That was much prettier. All right, so so in all the tests, we're only testing with 1s and 0s, so perhaps we should count the number of lines as well.
Yeah. It should count the number lines.
Perfect.
So
So
we're
how
gonna do a
about we-
really nightmare on the field with this. And it looks like smile.
Right. So that looks like that looks like a bad day to play minefield.
Yeah, indeed. I guess like 8 mines, right?
Yeah. And now it's
It's green.
Yeah.
It's red.
and the problem is that we're hard coding this return, so we need to actually count the number of mines.
Yeah.
So I'm going to count them and return the count.
It's green again.
Okay. I think that should be everything.
Yeah.
Does it feel?
Feels like a game.
It feels like a game. Not that much code. Let's do an acceptance test.
Okay.
It passes the acceptance test. And how about I use the test that we had in the slides as example? So this one. So that's the test. It says dot, 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 and dot, star, dot, dot, and dot, star, dot, star, and dot, 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 star. All right, and what should this be? Should be...
You should copy that, really.
Yeah, I probably should. There. Okay, if I move the window, maybe I can see both at the same time.
Yeah, that was close.
We'll do this. Nobody can see what's going on, but I'll maximize it afterwards. 1110, 2 star 231, 2 star 31,
Yeah.
2 star 4 star, and 113 star. Do you think it'll pass?
Not really. Tipo. Yeah.
Thank you. To equal as well. Thank
Yep.
you. All right. Wow. Thank you. All right, so it passes.
Yeah, it
Thank
works.
you. I think we have a minefield implementation here, and project managers will be happy.
Yeah, it's good.
So thank you, Boris, for helping me demonstrate what pair programming looks like. This is a pretty I hope you were able to follow along what happened, even though it was a little bit fast, and I think a bit too fast for a few of you. So I wanted to discuss with you what did you see about how we interacted, how we progressed through the code, how we designed, and maybe how we used the programming language. So that's Boris. Did anyone notice how frequently, when did we switch who was at the keyboard? Each test? That was you, Jan. Good. Did you see any other effects of pairing? How did we help each other?
Refactoring after test plus.
Yeah. So we helped each other. Oh, that's interesting. I had to borrow the computer because it only supports HDMI here, so I don't know what's running here. If something bad comes up, it's not my fault. All right. So we refactored after every time we got the test to pass. Did anyone notice when did we refactor? What was the state of the code when we refactored? It was green, exactly. Who said that? Good duck. So we refactor on green. Why would we refactor on green and not on red? Yeah. So you said to make sure it doesn't break. I think you said it first. So we refactor on green to make sure that the refactoring doesn't break something else. So if we don't know the state of the code, then it's very hard to know whether the refactoring worked or not. So what did the person who wasn't at the keyboard do?
Supervising, seeing, fixing the mistakes.
Helping with mistakes. So yeah, so getting the broader picture, helping seeing mistakes, making sure that we didn't run the test when it was in a bad state. Did anyone notice anything else? I'm not sure myself. Yeah. Yeah. So the high five situation, for example, in Norway we call this high five driven development. So when you get a test to pass, you do a high five. And it's about putting some of that fun into your work when you're programming. So it's about making the programming into a more social activity as well. How many tests did we write? Did anyone count? Did anyone notice? 10 tests. Was that you, Jan? All right. I think when you offer a question, if you want chocolate, then raise your hand so I can see who gets the chocolate. All right. So how many tests would you have written for this? Would you have written more or fewer tests for this problem?
I'd write argument validations.
Argument validations. That's an interesting set of tests. So personally, I don't like to write argument validation tests so much because so the question is, could you get a invalid minefield, for example, a minefield that was missing some cells in a row. So that's an example of validation. And then you might want the code to react properly to that. Now, it's a big, you might not, in a test like this, you might not know where you get the minefield from. Maybe you get the minefield from a place where it will always be valid. So I prefer to postpone a lot of validation tests until I know the context of the code.
We usually start with that in languages like C#. You would expect a special set of exceptions you might get. And you first do it bulletproof, then you write functionality. That's how we do it.
Yeah, personally, I prefer the other way around, but I think that, there's no right way or wrong way. But so everyone, you have at least two competing ideas here on how to do it. So you should try it both. What was the first test we wrote? Hello World, yeah, that test was there already. What was the second test then? Exactly. So you'll get a second one for that. That was actually the implementation of the second test. So the second test we wrote was to say if you have an empty minefield, all the hints are 0. And we could implement it by hard coding the return value. What's the purpose of hard coding the return value to make the test pass? Exactly. So that's one of the most important reasons, is to make sure that the code and the tests are the way you expect them to be. So if the test had failed, still we might have had a problem with the test setup. So that's one very good point. Anything else? So I think you almost should get 2 chocolates for that answer, because the style where we programmed here is called ping pong programming. Does anyone know why it could be called ping pong programming? You switch every test, exactly. So I serve with a red test, and then Boris makes the test pass, and then he passes the ball back. So you switch programmers every time. And one thing that's kind of fun to do then is to try and see if you can solve your step as simple as possible. One place where the analogy breaks down is that if you write a test that forces the other person to take a really big step, it will slow down the whole process. So you shouldn't try and hit the ball too hard going back. But it is a very good metaphor, and you get the chocolate. Oh, I need to exercise before this talk. So it is over there. What was the last test we wrote? The acceptance test, exactly. So why did we write the acceptance test last? Yep. So we wrote the test to make sure that sort of a real-world example worked when we thought that the code, when we couldn't think of anything more to do with the code. So that's a good final test.
How many of such tests do you usually write? One is enough, or you write a dozen with different values?
It depends on the problem. It depends, yeah. So how many acceptance tests would you write? In a problem like this, I would be happy with 1 acceptance test, because the problem is pretty simple. But if you feel that the acceptance test doesn't reflect everything that the other tests write, then it might be a good idea to have more. All right, so with the steps here, I'm going to go back. So the step size. How long did the code stay read at one time? So for one test, how long did one test stay read though? How long? Yeah, 1 or 2 minutes. So whoa. So for those of you who've practiced test-driven development, is that longer or shorter than your test would stay read? Well, so your test would stay read for longer? Yeah. And, oh, sorry, I think I hit someone in the face with a chocolate. Be careful out there. All right, so in reality, I think when I write test-driven development, or when I write production code, I use test-driven development. And usually it takes 10 minutes, like Dimitri and Anton said, or sometimes 20, 30 minutes to get a test to green. But more than 30 minutes and we know we're kind of working on the wrong thing. So then we try and do a different step. Does anyone else have any experience with how long would you like your tests to stay red before you get them to green?
Like if you're using Cucumber or something, you're testing red variable.
Yes.
You write stacks and you have to write code and implement like acceptance tests.
So for those who aren't familiar with Cucumber and also Fitness, which serve the same purpose, those tools are for behavior-driven development, which is a complementary practice to test-driven development. And in behavior-driven development, you're focusing on what tests should your customers are your customers interested in. And I think if you were to use Cucumber in our case, I think you only would have this last acceptance test. That would, it's way down here. The last acceptance test, that's all you probably would want to write at that level, and that test would be read for at least half an hour, even for a small example. And so the step size in behavior-driven development is sort of a different cycle. Very good point. Did you get chocolate? Yeah, good. Okay. Well, are you okay? Okay. Okay. We talked a little bit about. So, what did you think about the final code? Were you able? So, it went back and forth quite a bit, but I think we can actually get all of the code on the screen at the same time. That's the tests. That's all the code. What do you think of the final code? Do you like the design? Does it work out? Do you want any improvements? All right. So you said you don't like 0 here? No, here. Yeah, there. So exactly. If you don't have a board there, then row call indexes will actually end up throwing an exception. So that's not good. That was a good catch. Thank you. Anything else? No comments. That's an interesting one. So does this code need comments? What do you guys think? You don't want comments? Author. Well, who should we write as the author? So you want us to write author? Who should I write as the author? Yeah. So we're 2 authors at least then, and that's an interesting thing. So thank you. It's a very interesting thing. I think we'll get a little bit back to pair programming. Because if you pair program, it will be harder to often identify the author of a piece of code because it will often be more of a shared code base, and that is yes. So let's see. I thought to talk about with pair programming. One technique that we've used in some of the teams where I've worked, I call this a pair programming star, and you'll see in a moment. So you put the names of the team members around in a circle. So I'm here and Boris is here, and since Boris and I were pair programming together, now there's a line here, but it missed. I mean, the line in the projectors. So since we programmed together, we put a line between our names, and as the iteration goes forward, we put line between the names of those who pair program. Now our human resources people are pretty interested in this sort of stuff because this is not very technical anymore. This is very much about team development. So in this situation, you can see that Dmitry and Sergey, this is a fictional example, but you can see that Dmitry and Sergey, they like to program together. It's not supposed to be anyone in particular, although it is. So the problem, and then this isn't necessarily a problem. The fact that these are programming together isn't necessarily a problem, but it's something to talk about, isn't it? So you say, okay, so in this case, it would the code that Dmitry and Sergey writes would have a natural author tag. But if you look at Boris, his program with pretty much everybody, so the code that he's been working on is much harder to identify who owns that code. And we have similar situations that a user story might have several people working on it. And whether this works for your team or not depends a lot on what you're trying to achieve, but this is a good way to spread knowledge around. It's also a good way to get people a little bit frustrated that they can't sit down and work with someone that they work with. So it's to give you insight into what's going on, not to force a particular behavior. Good. More questions? More comments? So anything else about the code?
Yeah, I have a question.
Yes?
Why did you choose this language?
Oh. I chose this language. This code is written in CoffeeScript. It's a language that compiles down to JavaScript. The most important reason why I chose that was because I think it's a fun language. And another reason is that most of the time it puts, so for a presentation situation, everybody is equally unfamiliar with the language. So, so I'm not sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but it means that if I were to choose Java, then C# developers, bless their hearts, they would be not doing so well. I don't know if this is a good reason or not, but I had fun programming with it. Did you get a chocolate? Yeah? Okay, good.
What's your personal estimate on time efficiency working in pairs and writing tests and code, not only the code?
Very good question. So the question is it, so I guess the question, so I paraphrase is it slower to work this way? And the answer is, it depends. For one thing, if you're very quick with a debugger and you like to spend time in the debugger, then that might be faster. If you find you spend more time in the debugger than you enjoy, then writing more tests probably will make you faster. In this particular example, we took 2 steps here for this test. We expanded dimension one direction and then the other direction. In reality, I might want to do that in one step. So these steps were as small as I possibly could make it. Depending upon your familiarity with the language and the domain and everything, it might be faster if you do it in fewer steps. But if you're stuck in the debugger, you'll lose that time very, very fast. Similarly, I would possibly skip these 4 tests above, below, left, and right, and then just do the around test if I felt confident that I would make it work. So as far as test room development works, the speed of test room development, I think if you find you spend time with the debugger, you're probably better off spending that time with the tests. As far as pair programming, it depends a lot upon who you're pairing with. So Boris is a very strong programmer, and he's also got quite a bit. He's got more experience with CoffeeScript than I have. So in that case, it was about as fast as it would be solo. And he helped me in a few ways get the code better. He taught me things that I didn't know. For example, when I practiced with Boris yesterday, I wasn't worried that I could put a question mark here to get magic stuff to happen. But if you have a senior programmer pairing with a junior programmer, it probably will slow things down. So you can't look at it as a productivity situation. If you're willing to do that to train the junior programmer, it's an appropriate way to train the junior programmer, but it comes at the time cost that you have to expect when you're training people. Did that answer your question?
Do you think having that much tests increases long-term support costs?
If the tests increase the long-term support cost? Yes. In this case, this is, so the question is if this number of tests is so large that it increases maintainability cost. So one thing I don't like so much is if we change the rules around how to calculate the hints, so if the actual business rules changed, I would have to change this test, this test, this test, this test, this, and this, and it would feel like sort of the same change. So I think that before checking in this code, I would just take these and delete them. So now we have tests that better reflect the different situations in our code. So now we have shows hints around mine. We don't have left, right, up, and down anymore. What I've also done, so Boris refactored out this expect hints method here. This means that if the signature for the minefield changes, that change is isolated to this one method. If we had this code copied through all the way, then that would increase our maintainability cost. So when you have, so you definitely need to look at your tests as part of your code base. You should, I like to remove redundant tests because they only add maintenance cost. And it's important to refactor your tests as well as your code to reduce maintainability cost. In general, when you have a good test coverage, your maintainability costs, I think, go down. But like you point out, having too many tests can increase the number of things you have to do when something actually does change. So very good question. More questions?
I did notice you concentrate on code coverage, and you kind of write tests that make sense. And sometimes it's like very hard to cover that last line of code, like you have to implement all those stuff, and So do you think it?
Okay.
Do you think this concentration on code coverage is a good thing, a bad thing, like taking it to 100%?
The question is about code coverage. What's the right level of code coverage? I don't focus much on the number for code coverage. There are tools that can measure how many of the lines of code have been executed by the tests, and then you can try and get that number to go up. The problem with that is that you don't really care about how many lines of code are covered by the test. You care about how many potential bugs will be detected by the test. That's a real measure of code coverage. So the numbers, sometimes you have to do artificial things to get the numbers, to have the number be as high as you want it. I don't care enough to do those artificial things. And also, sometimes you can feel confident that you have 100% code coverage, so this code should always work, and that doesn't necessarily matter either. I don't over-focus on code coverage.
So are you comfortable with some part of your code not being tested at all?
Which part? It's a risk evaluation. if I feel that the consequence of an error in that code is low, and the chance is low, then sure. If that code never changes and it's been tested manually a lot, then why add tests? But if it's code that I know will change a lot, or that have changed a lot, and it's code that I know has bugs in it, then I'm not comfortable with not having test coverage.
Fair enough. One more question. Have you noticed a tendency that test-driven code that's being developed in test-driven development practice tends to be like simpler and tends to have like a little worse in architecture, because you don't concentrate on like writing good architecture, you concentrate on making your test best.
So how will TDD affect your architecture? In general, I like a simpler architecture, and I find that with practice, I'm able to get a test to drive me to have the right architecture rather than the architecture that looks nice on a diagram, or that follows all the patterns that people say you have to follow. And as you might have noticed, only in this small example here, we refactored out the hasmine as a small sort of, it's not really an architectural refactoring, but it's the same kind of step towards it. If you're not serious about refactoring, your TDD will probably give you poorly architected code. If you make sure to refactor all the time, it can help you, but it requires practice.
Yeah. So do you think that a separate refactoring step, like after you finish the code, is necessary, or is just in place refactoring good enough?
I don't know. I really don't know. So I mean, this is the process that I like to do the most. So this is what we did. I wrote a failing test. Boris made it pass. He was in charge of the refactoring. We might have done a little bit together. He wrote a new failing test. So refactoring all the time helps, but I've never ended up with a situation where I haven't felt like we had to do some big refactoring steps. So I don't know. Probably you need to stop and do some larger refactoring as well, all the time.
Okay, thanks a lot. Nice presentation.
Thank you. Let me just wrap up. So what I've talked about is we know, I think most people have heard, you need to do test-driven development because we tell you to. It doesn't necessarily mean that you know how to get started or how to be good at it. In order to be good at it, you have to practice. I code pretty much like I showed you when I work, and I try to reflect on what I'm doing at work. And I have, so the example you saw with Minesweeper, I've done this probably 40 or 50 times, so I've tried doing the same kata or exercise several times, and I noticed new things still. And goodbye to you. And also, I like to meet up with other people and practice together. So I'll end with sort of a challenge to you guys. Is there a Moscow coding dojo? Does anyone know? Doesn't sound like it. Should there be a Moscow coding dojo? Let's say, what is a coding dojo? In Oslo, me and a lot of other guys meet about once a month to program together in the evening as a social event. Normally, we meet in a bar, and you can see we gather around a computer with a code on the monitor, and this is, we can pretend this is beer. So code and beer is a good combination. Google the Balmer Peak if you don't believe me. And sometimes, like this, we had a code retreat where 24 people met on a Saturday. So every day of the week we program for money. This day we program just for us. Spent the whole Saturday. After I gave this talk in Kiev, there was a Kiev coding dojo. I'm told that this says Kiev Anonymous Programmers. Yeah? So they met and had a coding dojo. These are pictures from it. I hope that you guys will be inspired to do the same. If you're interested, I have the to-do on how to do this that I gave the people in Kiev. If you tweet me, I'll get back to you on that. So I hope that you want to do that. If you think that practicing this sounds like more fun, I have a workshop on Thursday where you will get to program hands-on for the whole day. And it's another situation where you code to learn. If you practice what you do, you're able to think much more clearly about the problem because each step feels natural and is in your muscle memory. So if you practice what you're doing, then you'll be able to deal with larger problems and have more fun at work. So I wish you fun at work for years to come. Thank you. All right. Thank you. It's always a bit scary because